Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public informational meeting for state project number 123-068, replacement of bridge number 04772, Bass Road over Merrick Brook in the town of Scotland. To use captions and subtitles in Zoom, there is a menu button on the bottom of the screen to press show captions, and then allows you to pick your chosen speaking language. Closed captioning, including non-English translation options, are available on YouTube after the event. My name is Mark Burns, and I'm the supervising engineer for the CTDOT and the department's local bridge program. There's my contact information. And the goals for tonight's meeting will be to interact with the rest of the project team, to explain the Design Managed by State, or DMS program that's in the federal local bridge program, to introduce the project team. We'll have welcoming remarks by the first selectman of Scotland, followed by a formal presentation of the design progress, which will explain the condition of the existing bridge, as well as define its purpose and need for replacement, and present our recommended viable cost or design proposal. And then there'll be an open forum to your Q&A questions and answers. I'll read the slide in its entirety regarding Title VI civil rights. No person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. We highly encourage you to fill out the voluntary post-meeting survey located at the link and QR code shown. There's also a link to the department's Office of Equity Title VI Civil Rights page. The recording of this presentation will also be posted to the CTDOT's YouTube channel after the event, and closed captioning, including non-English translation options, are available on Zoom and YouTube. There's another slide in full of the department's Title VI notice to the public. And the same slide in Spanish. To use the Zoom Q&A, there's a button at the bottom of the window. You can click Q&A, and then you'll be able to type in your question right there in the dialog box and press enter. If you're an audio-only participant, please dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. You can also reach out to us by email at dot-flbp@ct.gov, by phone at 860-594-2020. Please reference project 123-68 in your voicemail, using the Zoom Q&A during this live event. And then we also encourage you to view the project webpage located at the link shown. The comment, even though the Zoom Q&A is only available for this evening, the comment period is open through September 10th, 2024. The funding for this project is through the Federal Local Bridge Program's Design Managed by State, or DMS program. Traditionally, in the Federal Local Bridge Program, projects were funded at 80% federal dollars and a 20% town match for design, rights-of-way, and construction. Under DMS, design, rights-of-way, and construction phases are funded with 80% federal and 20% state funds, at minimum. In some cases, will be 100% federal. Design, rights-of-way, and construction will be at no cost to the town. And even though we're using our department resources, design is a full partnership between, and you coordinate with the town at all project milestones. The goals of the DMS program were to provide a streamlined approach to design using full DOT resources, to aid the towns in keeping their bridges in a state of good repair by effective use of funds, decrease typical design time from 48 to 60 months to 24 to 36 months, and when applicable, to utilize accelerated bridge construction techniques to shorten construction durations. The rest of the CTDOT project team is shown here. Our division chief of bridges is Bart Sweeney. Derek Lassard is principal engineer of the consultant liaison unit. As I said, I'm Mark Burns, supervising engineer. Michelle Rain is the project engineer for this project. And representing the Office of Rights-of-Way is Zach Areno, project coordinator. Representing GM2 Associates, who's the department's consultant liaison engineer, are Mike Brady, project manager, and Dan Carradine, project engineer. Here's a slide showing some key structural bridge elements. Shown on top is the bridge deck, which is what supports all traveling people, vehicles, bicycles, etc. Supporting the deck is the bridge superstructure, and in the case of this diagram is steel beams. Supporting the deck and superstructure is the bridge's substructure, And in the case of this diagram, there's a midspan pier. This is used depending on how long the span is. There may be one pier, multiple piers, or no piers. Beneath the superstructure will be the or as part of the abutments, it will either be spread footings or some sort of pile support and foundation. These key elements are rated on a scale of 0 to 9, with 9 being in excellent condition and 0 being in bridge closed. I'll now turn it over to Dana Barrow, First Selectman, Town of Scotland. Dana.
I want to thank you, and I basically want to thank everybody involved in the project. As you can imagine, we're such a small town. To come up to replace these 3 bridges, and then actually the 4 bridges they're doing, would probably put the town behind the 8 ball for the next 50 years budget-wise. We get 1,600 people trying to, and each one of these bridges run over $3 million. So it would be almost impossible for the town to survive and replace the bridges. So we end up just leaving them in the brook. So we really want to thank everybody at the state for working on it, and appreciate you not sliding it. Like say what we talked about apparently is not going to happen. So not sliding it to the back of the list. Because we've been driving around these. It's hard for the buses like any town. You have to turn around. We had to make turnarounds for the buses and that type of stuff. So we really appreciate you all working on it, and the town of Scotland appreciates it a lot. And I'll make sure everybody knows that this is the state of Connecticut and it's the federal government, helping us out a lot. But thank you. That's about it.
Thank you, Dana. I'll now turn it over to Dan Carnine for the formal presentation. Dan?
All right. Thank you, Mark. And good evening, everyone. I'm Dan Carnine, the project engineer from GM2, here to present the project-specific information for project 0123-0068. Bridge number 04772 is located in the town of Scotland along Bass Road, approximately 0.25 miles south of the intersection with Gager Hill Road. This is an aerial view of the bridge, which is in a rural forested area. There is an agricultural property to the north of the bridge, Bass Farm. And then there's a Connecticut Deep owned Talbot Wildlife Management Area located to the west of the bridge. There's also a couple of residential properties located to the south. The original bridge consisted of a concrete slab and beam superstructure on concrete abutments and wing walls. In 2020, an acro bridge was installed over the entire original bridge. In 2023, the acro bridge was made more permanent with installation of helical bridge piles and tiebacks. The original superstructure was also removed, but the abutments and wing walls were left in place. The original bridge had a span length of 21 feet, a curb to curb width of 22 feet 9 inches for 2 lanes of traffic, and a skew of 19 degrees. Bass Road is classified as a rural local road with the estimated average daily traffic of 343 vehicles per day before its closure. The road has a posted speed limit of 30 miles per hour and no existing sidewalks. The original structure had 2 travel lanes and approach rating of 6. However, more recently, the installed acro bridge utilized 1 lane of stop sign controlled alternating one-way traffic. The current approaches also have no metal guide rail systems and only use the wood posts along the edge of the road. The existing structure has a condition rating of 0 due to the failure and road closure. The original abutments and wing walls collapsed into the channel during the fall 2023 storm events. The acro bridge is only being supported by the helical piles and tiebacks. However, the piles and tiebacks were exposed during the storm event, resulting in the bridge closure. Here's a couple more photos of the existing bridge. The top photos show the original upstream wing walls and the downstream wing walls that have collapsed into the channel, as well as the embankment erosion that occurred during the 2023 storm event. The bottom left photo shows the location of the failed abutment and some of the exposed helical piles. And then the bottom right photo also shows some of the exposed tiebacks. Prior to the closure, the bridge had a history of scour activity and poor hydraulic performance. So in other words, the brook has caused erosion at this bridge in the past. The Acro Bridge was originally installed in 2020 due to scour erosion and undermining of the original abutments. And because of that, the bridge was rated scour critical prior to the failure in 2023. So project number 0123-0068 will address all the existing conditions that have been presented with the main purpose of addressing the failure of bridge number 04772 and opening Bass Road to vehicles. The project will provide a new bridge that, 1, meets current design standards, and 2, is resilient to future storm events to ensure that this does not happen again. This project will involve a full bridge replacement with a new bridge that consists of a precast concrete beam superstructure supported by integral abutments founded on deep pile foundations. The span length will be increased from the original 21 feet to a 54-foot clear span. The proposed bridge will have a curb-to-curb width of 24 feet to accommodate 2 12-foot travel lanes, so 1 lane in each direction. Open metal bridge rail will be installed along both sides of the bridge that connects to concrete walls treated with simulated stone masonry. New metal guide rail that meets current safety standards will also be installed along the approaches, and a dry hydrant will also be installed at the bridge. The picture on the slide is an example of a precast box beam bridge with an open bridge rail and simulated stone masonry, so it gives a very good idea of what is being proposed with this project. In addition to the bridge improvements, this project will improve the hydraulic conditions at the site. The proposed 54-foot clear span is much larger than the original 21-foot span. This will provide a much larger hydraulic opening that allows more water to pass under the bridge. Because of the proposed improvements, the roadway will not overtop during a 100-year storm event. And for reference, the original bridge caused roadway flooding during a 50-year storm event. The proposed hydraulic improvements will also result in no calculated scour at the bridge, which means we do not anticipate any erosion at the bridge during a 200-year design storm event or even a 500-year event. Additionally, embankment protection will be installed to stabilize the channel and embankments. And if for some reason scour were to happen, the bridge would remain supported and operational with the deep pile foundations. This is a typical cross-section of the proposed bridge. 4 asphalt concrete box beams are located at the bottom of the section. A concrete deck is on top of those beams. And then on top of that deck is membrane waterproofing and bituminous concrete pavement. You can also see here the 3-2 bridge rail that's going to be installed on both sides of the bridge, as well as the 24-foot curb-to-curb width and the 2 12-foot travel lanes. This is an elevation view or side view of the proposed bridge. Starting at the top, you can see the open metal bridge rail. The bridge rail will terminate into concrete end blocks. The end blocks and other exposed substructure elements will be treated with a concrete form liner that creates a simulated stone masonry appearance. The bridge will utilize integral abutments, which means that the beams of the bridge, the abutments of the bridge, and the pile foundations for the bridge will be connected and act as one system that eliminates the need for any additional bridge joints in the roadway. The elimination of the bridge joints will result in less maintenance for the bridge over its lifetime. And then under the bridge, the channel will be reconstructed to have stable slopes, and the embankment protection will be installed in the form of stone riprap. That riprap will also be top dressed with 12 inches of natural stream bed material. This is a proposed roadway plan. So looking down over the site, the bridge structure can be seen in the center in orange. There will be approximately 500 linear feet of full depth roadway reconstruction, seen here in yellow. Metal beam guide rail will be installed at all 4 corners of the bridge that meets the current safety standards. And then the guide rail will also replace all wooden posts within the project limits. The proposed grading can be seen in green. And looking closer at the bridge, you can see the grading extends upstream and downstream from the bridge. This grading is required to remove the existing failed wing walls and reestablish the channel and embankments. Construction will be performed in one stage and utilize the current detour. That detour is 3.8 miles long and uses Gager Hill Road, Devotion Road at Route 97, and then Plains Road. We would like to note that there is another bridge project along Gager Hill Road that is currently in design, located along the detour route. However, Bass Road is the higher priority, so the project on Gager Hill Road will not start until Bass Road is open to vehicles. We will obtain all necessary permits for this project at the local, state, and federal levels. This includes a Scotland Inland Wetlands permit and a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers general permit for the state of Connecticut. The Army Corps permit will most likely be a self-verification permit, which would help save some time in design. And we also want to note that this project is not located within a mapped FEMA flood zone. Therefore, no flood management certification is required. And this will also result in design time savings. These are the proposed property impacts for the project. To the north, there's a temporary construction easement, as well as a right to reconstruct driveway. And to the south, we have a couple temporary construction easements. The temporary construction easements are required to install water handling devices, remove the existing failed wing walls, perform channel grading, and stabilize the embankment. Some additional 4F coordination may be required for the temporary impacts to the Connecticut Deep property or the Talbot Wildlife Management Area, and that coordination is ongoing. We would like to keep in mind that these impacts are based on preliminary design plans, so these impacts could change as design progresses. So construction for this project is scheduled to start in the spring of 2027 based on our standard project schedule, and the construction would last 6 to 8 months or one construction season. The construction cost, including incidentals and inflation, would be $3,259,000. 80% of that would be from federal funds and 20% covered by state funds. And it would be no cost to the town. Please note that the schedule and costs are preliminary and subject to change for this project. And due to the current state of the road, our goal is to bring that started construction in to 2026. We plan on meeting that date by accelerating our design schedule as much as possible and reducing our permitting and right-of-way impacts as much as possible. So as mentioned earlier, we will not need a flood management certification, which will help. And we will also make sure that this project remains eligible for the Army Corps self-verification permit. That'll also help reduce time. So at this time, I will turn it over to Zach Guarino from the CTDOT Division of Rights-of-Way to discuss the rights-of-way process.
Thanks, Dan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zachary Guarino, and I'm a project coordinator with the Department's Division of Rights-of-Way. Our office is responsible for acquiring the proper rights for transportation projects. As Dan mentioned in the presentation, this project will require the acquisition of property rights, so I'd like to give a brief overview of our acquisition process. Before I begin, I'd like to mention again that the specific impacts are still being finalized and they may change as the design progresses, and that any required property rights will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes Sections 13A 73 and 13A 98E, as well as the Uniform Act. And again, as Dan mentioned, we have the 2 construction easements, which are temporary in nature and will extinguish at the end of the project. You can go to the next slide. So the right-of-way acquisition process begins once the design has progressed to a development milestone and all of the impacts have been determined. At this point, each affected property owner will receive a formal letter of intent to acquire from our office, along with a property map which depicts the exact property rights to be acquired. And on the screen here is an example of a property map that an owner may receive. Shows the existing conditions as well as the proposed improvements to the property, Next, our office will determine the fair market value of the property rights that were depicted on that property map. And that's going to be used to establish an offer of just compensation. That offer will be sent out to the property owner in writing, and a right-of-way agent will be available to meet with the property owner and explain the project, go over the specific impacts to their property, and explain how the state arrived at its offer. The property owner will be given a reasonable amount of time, typically 30 days, to consider the state's offer and enter into negotiations. When an agreement is reached, the department will prepare all the necessary paperwork to record the deed and property map on the town land records. However, if an agreement cannot be reached, in order to keep on schedule, the department may acquire the necessary property rights to its power of eminent domain. In that event, the state files a notice of condemnation in the Superior Court along with a monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer. The owner would have 6 months from that date to file an appeal if they felt that the state's offer was inadequate. Whether or not the owner chooses to appeal, the money deposited in the court is available to be withdrawn by the owner. And it's important to note that the state only acquires property rights that are needed for this specific project. If there are any questions regarding the right-of-way acquisition process, I can answer them after the presentation. With that, I'll turn it over to Michelle for the Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Dan. Great job, everyone. We are now going to start the question and answer session. I just want to remind everybody that you can send your questions to our email at dot-flbp@ct.gov or by phone at 860-594-2020. Please reference project number 123-68 in your voicemail, or you can ask your questions right now during our live question and answer session. Our comment period is open through September 10th, 2024. We currently don't have any questions at the moment, but we'll keep this open for a few minutes to give everybody an opportunity. I have also linked the project webpage in the chat as well, where you can find information on the project, links to project plans, and the project description.
Hi, this is Dana. Dan, any chance of sending a couple pictures? This, the presentation, like what the bridge is going to look like and stuff like that, a couple things like that. So, if somebody has a question, I can actually show them what, proposed bridge will look like.
Yeah, we can absolutely send you a copy of this presentation as well as kind of some of our display boards. All this information will also be posted on the project webpage, which is being posted in the chat too. So for anyone attending, they can see some of those proposed plans there too. And Michelle, this presentation does get posted to that webpage as well, correct?
Yes. And I'm sorry, I did get a question on the chat. Any ideas as to when the bridges on Brook Road will be started?
Yeah, Michelle, I guess I'll start with that one. I just want to say that, so Bass Road and Brook Road bridges are all a high priority. Both Brook Road bridges are also in the design phase. They're a couple months behind. We will need to coordinate a little bit more with the town and to figure out kind of the best way to schedule these projects to make sure that we don't have too many projects going on at the same time. But as far as when the bridges and Brook Roads will be started, it would be most likely after this Bass Road project.
Yeah, I think, Dan, are we targeting sometime in 2020, late 26, early 27 for those two?
Yep. Yeah. So both these projects are, so the project that was presented tonight, the Bass Road project and the Brook Road projects, they have the very similar design schedule. It's just a matter of how we want to coordinate kind of the construction.
Perfect. Thanks. And I do want to reiterate that the link to this presentation and the meeting minutes, they do get posted to the project webpage, and I did post the link to the webpage in the chat again. I have no more questions, but I will reiterate that you can ask your questions live during the chat right now, or you can send them through email until September 10th, 2024 at dot.flbp@ct.gov, or you can leave us a voicemail at 860-594-2020, and please reference the project number 0123-68 in your voicemail.
Yeah, Dan, as far as the North Brook Road Bridge, you know, the bridge is laying in the river right now, so you know, you're welcome to start on that anytime you want. Yeah, but like I say, we need to get that done before we can take the other one, the temporary bridge out. And like before you talked about, we got to do the Bass Road before we hit Gauger Hill Bridge.
Exactly.
I'm good. I appreciate your time tonight and appreciate everybody's effort on it. And I think it's moving forward, you know, and I like what I see. I think the bridge is great looking, you know, and the fact that you designed it out for 100 years and even some of that 200-year, you know, scour stuff. I think that's fantastic, you know, because then that's something you can just take off the table and never, you know, basically never have to worry about again, you know. You know, I
That is the
appreciate it.
goal.
You got any questions? Okay. Okay, I'm just talking here. Our second selectman doesn't have any questions and neither administrator, so we're good right here, unless you got any more coming online.
I have no more questions coming in online. I am going to post a link to our volunteer survey if you would like to fill it out. If anybody in the attendance list would like to fill it out after this presentation, it would be greatly appreciated as well. It helps us out with our future public info meetings and whatnot. But if we have no more questions, then I can close up this presentation and this session, if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sounds
Great.
good.
All right. Thank you so
Good.
much, everyone. Thanks for coming, and we hope you have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Take
You
care.
too. Thanks.
Bye.